What happens when a country with nuclear weapons bombs another accused of building them without proof, without trials, and without consequences? That's exactly what's unfolding right now in the heart of the Middle East. The United States and Israel have launched a 12-day bombing campaign against Iran's nuclear infrastructure, claiming to stop a supposed atomic threat. But here's the twist. While Iran's centrifuges lie in ruins, 400 kilograms of near weapons, grade uranium may have vanished, and no one can say where it went. Meanwhile, Israel, the very country leading these attacks, maintains one of the world's most secretive and unmonitored nuclear arsenals. No IAEA oversight, no international inspections, just a fortress in Dimona, shrouded in silence and double standards. And in the middle of this fog stands the IAEA, crippled by politics, haunted by Iraq's ghost, and now chasing uranium through rubble. As the acclaimed actor Morgan Freeman once said, "When truth is buried beneath deception, the path to conflict is paved with shadows. Stay with us." Because what you'll see isn't just a nuclear controversy, it's a high-stakes geopolitical shell game. One where truth, like uranium, is buried deep beneath the surface. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Can we still trust the global nuclear order? On the 13th of June, 2025, as much of the world was distracted by unfolding events elsewhere, Israel launched a calculated bombing raid against Iran's most fortified nuclear site, Fordo. This site, carved deep into a mountain, had long been at the center of Iran's uranium enrichment program. Within 10 days, former U.S. President Donald Trump confidently declared that not only Fordo, but also the facilities in Natanz and Isfahan had been, in his words, completely wiped out, using advanced bunker, penetrating munitions supplied by the United States. Yet, as usual, the facts on the ground told a murkier story. Fordo was no typical facility. It was where Iran enriched a significant portion of its uranium to levels approaching 60% purity, a step just shy of the threshold for weaponization. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, over 400 kilograms of enriched uranium were stored there prior to the bombing. What happened to it afterward, however, is a mystery buried under tons of rubble and political noise. Satellite images captured on the 22nd of June showed visible structural damage, but the underground chambers remained inaccessible and their contents unknown. Director General Rafael Grossi of the IAEA stated that many of the centrifuges were likely destroyed. Still, the question remains, what about the uranium itself? Was it obliterated, hidden, or quietly moved before the first missile struck? A Western diplomat familiar with the situation remarked that the pattern of activity at Fordo, including the appearance of trucks, bulldozers, and the sealing of entrances just days before the attacks, suggested Iran may have anticipated the strike and acted preemptively. According to the diplomat, it was as if they knew something was coming. Despite this, U.S. officials dismissed the idea. Speaking on Fox News, Donald Trump insisted that Iran had not moved anything. He argued that enriched uranium is far too heavy, too hazardous, and that the U.S. acted swiftly and without warning, leaving Tehran no time to react. But former IAEA Inspector Olli Heinonen wasn't convinced. He pointed out that identifying and accounting for uranium in the aftermath of such destruction requires extensive forensic work, environmental sampling, and recovery of scattered materials, all of which could take months, if not longer. Some analysts believe part of the uranium may have been buried under debris. Others suggest it could have been dispersed, or, more troubling, stored in a separate facility beyond IAEA reach. If true, this means that Iran might still possess sufficient material for a rapid dash toward weaponization, though, ironically, The attacks may have made that harder to confirm, not easier. And as the IAEA digs through the wreckage of Fordow, still blinded by dust and diplomacy, another nuclear enigma waits in the shadows, not beneath Iran's mountains, but behind closed doors in Israel. While Tehran's facilities are reduced to rubble and its nuclear program put under a global magnifying glass, Israel continues to operate one of the world's most secretive and unregulated arsenals. At the heart of it lies Dimona, the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center, established quietly in the late 1950s in the desert south of the country. Officially, it's a research center. In practice, it's a fortified black box that the International Atomic Energy Agency has never entered. Declassified intelligence reports from as far back as 1960 confirm that the facility includes a plutonium reprocessing plant and has direct ties to nuclear weapons development. By the early 1970s, U.S. intelligence had concluded, privately, of course, that Israel already possessed operational nuclear warheads. And today, based on estimates from experts at the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, Israel likely holds at least 90 warheads, with sufficient fissile material to manufacture several hundred more if needed. Yet Israel refuses to confirm or deny any of this. It maintains a policy of deliberate ambiguity, never admitting ownership of nuclear arms, while launching strikes on other nations just suspected, of aspiring to join the same club. Even more absurd, Israel has never signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. That's right. Unlike Iran, which remains a signatory, Israel has no legal obligation to report anything, allow inspections, or disclose the scale of its arsenal. And despite this, it enjoys unwavering support and protection from Western allies. As recently as 2021, satellite imagery revealed construction work and suspected upgrades at Dimona, suggesting that Israel is not just preserving, but expanding its nuclear capacity. And according to Iranian intelligence sources, which surfaced publicly before the June attacks, Tehran had allegedly obtained thousands of internal documents from within Dimona, detailing design blueprints, reactor specifications, and storage protocols for plutonium. Though these claims remain unverified, the very possibility highlights a stunning double standard. One nation openly cooperating with international inspectors is bombed, while another, operating in the shadows, is allowed to grow its nuclear stockpile unchecked. As Morgan Freeman once reflected, the real danger lies not in power, but in the hypocrisy that cloaks it in virtue. And in this case, that cloak is worn by Tel Aviv, while the world politely looks the other way. But as Israeli warplanes strike suspected threats across the region, Dimona remains untouched, unmonitored, and unchallenged, raising urgent questions about the credibility of the global nuclear order. Before the first missile struck Fordow, before the air raid sirens echoed across Natanz and Isfahan, inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency had routine access to Iran's enrichment sites. They came regularly, they checked machinery, they monitored uranium levels. It was, by all appearances, a functioning oversight mechanism. But that was before June. Since the 12-day bombing campaign began, the inspectors have been locked out by debris, by danger, and by diplomacy. As of the 25th of June, Director General Rafael Grossi admitted publicly that conditions on the ground now render any form of meaningful inspection nearly impossible. There are collapsed tunnels, unexploded munitions, and radioactive remnants strewn across once monitored facilities, according to Grossi. These hazards will delay access for weeks, maybe months. And yet, the clock is ticking on trust and on truth. Just one day earlier, on the 24th of June, the Iranian parliament voted to suspend all cooperation with the IAEA, citing the agency's failure to protect declared nuclear sites and accusing it of paving the way for military aggression through its recent resolution. That resolution, passed in early June, accused Iran of non-compliance with its non-proliferation obligations. Just days before the Israeli airstrikes began, Tehran sees the sequence as no coincidence. So now we face a familiar dilemma. The IAEA cannot inspect undeclared facilities. It cannot conduct surprise visits. It operates largely on goodwill and mutual trust, supported by intelligence, most of it coming from the US and Israel. But when access is denied and evidence is buried, what remains is speculation. Fordo is bombed. Natanz is flattened. Isfahan's vaults are torn open, and the trail, once clear, is now lost in the dust. This is not the first time. In 2003, UN inspectors in Iraq found no trace of weapons of mass destruction, despite loud and confident assertions from Washington and London. The war went ahead regardless. The weapons were never found. What was found was ruin. Now, 22 years later, it is Iran cast as the villain, not because of a bomb, not because of a warhead, but because of enrichment, something allowed under the very treaty they are still a member of. And as history threatens to repeat itself, the deeper question emerges. What if this was never about stopping a bomb, but about deciding who has the right to build one? There are 193 nations in the United Nations. 9 are known to possess nuclear weapons. Only one, Israel, has never signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty, never disclosed the size or existence of its arsenal, and yet continues to receive unquestioned support from the West. That same country now leads the charge against Iran, a nation that remains a signatory to the NPT, has declared its uranium stockpile, and was, until recently, allowing regular international inspection. This isn't simply a case of geopolitical imbalance. It is the embodiment of a global double standard. Iran is bombed, sanctioned, and vilified, largely based on the possibility of a future nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, Israel, with an estimated stockpile of at least 90 warheads and the capability to deliver them via aircraft, submarines, or land-based missiles, faces no scrutiny, no sanctions, new inspections, new questions. Worse still, the very core of this crisis, those 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, might not even be a threat. Some of it could have been destroyed in the attacks. Some could be scattered or inaccessible. Or perhaps some of it is still in Iran's possession, hidden from the world's eyes. But here's the truth. No one knows. And yet, without answers, the rhetoric against Tehran grows louder, not quieter. Media headlines focus relentlessly on Iran's supposed intentions, but they stay silent on Tel Aviv's enduring nuclear capacity, unmonitored, unverified, and widely accepted. The IAEA cannot enter Dimona. Western leaders won't speak its name. And the same governments that call for transparency in Tehran turn a blind eye to the silence in southern Israel. This is not disarmament. This is not fairness. This is deterrence through selective privilege. It's not a global order. It's nuclear apartheid. And under the shadow of this unequal standard, the rules bend, accountability vanishes, and the world inches closer to a confrontation built not on evidence but entitlement. The uranium might be buried. The truth, even deeper. Iran today stands burned and scarred, not because it built a bomb, but because it might have been close. Meanwhile, Israel, armed, unaccountable, and silent, sits outside the spotlight, above the law, and immune to the very oversight it demands of others. The International Atomic Energy Agency is now sidelined, its inspectors blocked by rubble and politics. The West claims victory. But the world watches in confusion. Have we prevented a nuclear threat, or just accelerated a regional catastrophe? Disarmament, we are told, is about preventing war. But who decides who disarms, and who decides who's trusted? In this theater of nuclear brinkmanship, it's not about who has the weapon, it's about who is allowed to. As Morgan Freeman once warned, when justice is overshadowed by power, the price of peace is paid in chaos. That chaos is now on full display, from the mountains of Fordo to the sands of Dimona. So now we ask, who truly threatens peace? The nation under siege, or the one hiding an arsenal behind silence? Let us know what you think. Because in a world where even inspectors can't find the truth, maybe it's time the public started looking a little harder.